Today, students, you will be taking Topic 2 assessment. We will begin by reading each question, giving a short explanation if needed, and you can pause each moment for each question if you need to and continue on. With question number 1, it asks, what is the opposite value of Emma's score? You have Cassie with -4, Emma with -12, and Juanita with +6. If you are to find and determine what the score is for Emma, and then you need to identify the opposite, think about Emma right here, what her score is and what the opposite value would be of that. And remember that opposite means the opposite direction from 0 on the number line. You could look at the number line on your desk if needed. Now, for the choices, there are 12, -12, 4, and -4. With these choices, they may be scrambled in a different order on your test. Keep that in mind. Question 2 asks this. A swimmer dives to 65 feet below the surface of the ocean. Write the integer that represents the depth of the dive. All right, with this, think about the number 65 with feet, and think about the fact that it's below the surface of the ocean. If you have sea level, and sea level's at 0, you have above sea level, you have below sea level. Think about what kind of number that would be as an integer. You have -65, 65, 0, and you have a negative outside parentheses with a negative inside parentheses for 65, which means negative times the quantity of -65. Only one correct answer here. We're going to go to page 2, which is just slide on down for you on your screen, and read number 3. On number 3, it asks, which of the following have a value equal to 37? But I mean the absolute value of 37. So think about what that would become if you took the absolute value of it. And which of these would also have the same value? Would it be 37, absolute value of -37, negative times the quantity of -37, 0, or -37? Just a heads up, there are 3 correct answers here. Question 4. It asks, what is the perimeter in units of polygon PQRSTU? Now let's refresh your memory on a couple of things. First, let's look and make sure when we look at the number line what it is counting by. We can see that it's counting by 1. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, each direction. That is important to note. Then, if we're finding perimeter, that is the distance around this shape, okay? In order to find that, you can do one of 2 things. You could really just count your blocks each way, all the way around. Does take a little longer, but you could do that. You could count the blocks on each side and then add them separately together. You could do that. And then the final option you could have is you can take what you know the value at each location to be. For instance, this first number is, it's up 2, and then it's in the opposite quadrant down here at -2. And you take the absolute value of each, and because they're in each quadrant, you would add them, 2 plus 2, and get that side. So take your time, find what the perimeter is around this object. Your choices are 24 units, 23 units, 12 units, and 22 units. Next question. Number 5. Now, this is really important to note a couple of things here. I'm going to read the question first and we'll discuss it. Jeremy listed 5 rational numbers. Then he drew a number line to display and compare them and put the numbers in order from least to greatest. You have 6/3 or 6/3. Think about what that simplifies to. You could do 6 divide 3 if you wanted to get a whole number or decimal answer. He had -3/4. You could keep that or change that to a decimal by doing -3 divide 4. You have 1.5, 0.25, and you have -5/4. You could keep it as a fraction, or to compare it to the other decimals, do -5 divide 4, and you'll get a decimal answer. You may use Desmos for this one. It would be very helpful. Let's continue. Now, you can write these in if you want to help you order them, but at the same time, let's keep in mind, here are your choices. There's only one set of correct answers. Always remember, negatives are less than positives, okay? That would be an easy way for you to look at these questions and see which ones definitely are not possible. Then you can narrow it down to converting these fractions to decimals and ordering them least to greatest. Keep in mind, if the number looks bigger but negative, it's actually a smaller number because it's farther to the left from 0. All right? Take your time to do this one. Moving on to question number 6. Write an inequality that compares the fraction and the decimal. Now, just some advice to do that. You could convert this by changing this to a decimal, 5 divide 4, and keep the negative. But this is a common sense question, and don't forget your rules, please, about positives and negatives and what is less and greater. Moving on to question 7. On question 7, which ordered pair locates the point on the coordinate plane? We are looking at this coordinate right here, okay? Think about how many you have to move left. I'm even just demonstrating how I would count it off. Think about how many you would need to move down. So left or right is your first number, and up or down is your second number. First number is X and second number Y. So the choices are either -3, -2, -3, +2, -2, -3, and -3, -3. Do not forget, out of these choices, that they may be scrambled on your test question. So the order could be different than what I read them to you. Moving on to question 8. Now, Carlos drew a plan for his rose garden on a coordinate plane. We have A, B, and C. The rose bushes are located at A, and you are to select what choice is correct on this one. Don't forget, you would count left or right first, how many, and then up, how many to get your first XY coordinate for A. B is here, and you'll be choosing from this selection. Let's see how many we have to go right and how many we have to go up to get to B. And finally, C, how many do you have to go to the right and how many down to get to C? First number for moving right, second number for moving down. All right, and make sure you make your selection there. Now, question 9 is a continuation of question 8. Where should Carlos place a fourth rose bush if he wants to have the bushes form a rectangle? Well, I can actually draw out what my rectangle would look like, and I would know that this right here is where my other coordinate would go. Now this looks a little blurry. Let's adjust it. There you go. Let's read off these choices. So you have -5, 5, -4, -5, -4.5, -5, and you have 5, -5. Now these count off, looks like by ones. So you go left and you go down to find the value of this one right here. Moving on to question 10. Which ordered pair locates Q on the coordinate plane? Q is over here. So in order to get to Q, you got to count over how many, and look, before you start counting, it seems like each mark is a half. So that means this is 0, either 1/2 or 0.5, 1, 1.5 or 1.5, 2, 2.5 or 2.5, 3. So these are counting by halves or decimal points. Now since our answers are in decimals, let's count with those and see where you end up and where, counting by decimals, 0.5s and 1s, you go down here to Q. Okay? Moving on to question 11. On question 11, it says choose the pair of points that are reflections of each other across the x-axis. Now, we have 2.5, -1, and -2.5, 1. We have -4.5, 1, and -1, 4 1/2. We have 4.2 and -1, and we have 2.4, -1. You have 1 and -2.5, and you have -1 and 2 1/4. You have 2 and 2 1/3, and you have 2 and -2 1/3. So I want you to keep in mind the rules of reflection across an x-axis, okay? In your notes, it does state what the rules are if you would like to look back and see. But here, if I were to draw a little picture, is the y-axis and here is the x-axis. So we are talking about what would reflect across the x-axis, okay? Keep in mind the rules are, if it's reflecting across the x-axis, okay, that means that the x's are the same, but the y's are opposites. Keep that in mind. First is x, second is y. First is x, second is y. Okay? Moving on. Choose the pair of points that are reflections of each other across the y-axis. Okay. On this one, you have 1, 2, and -1, 2. You have 1, 2, and 2, 1. You have 1, 2, and 1, -2, and you have 1.52 and 1.52. If we're reflecting across the y-axis, this is x, this is y, that means it's reflecting here to here or here to here. That is the y-axis, okay? That means that the y's are going to have the same value and the x's are going to have a different value. The x's would be opposites, the y's the same. On question 13, your very last one, okay? You are to choose yes or no to tell whether each statement is correct. Now when I slide this down, let's take a look at each question at a time. It says BC is 2 units long. This is BC right here. You have to determine if that is 2 units long. CA is 5 units long. That is from here to here. True or false, or yes or no, is it 5 units long? BC is shorter than BA. Here is BC, and here is BA. AC is 2 units longer than BC. So you would subtract the difference and see. And then it says triangle ABC is an equilateral triangle. A reminder that equilateral means all sides have the same measure. Good luck with your test. I hope you have a successful time.